Hi everyone, welcome to my review of George Lucas's Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones from 2002. So yes, we're back once again ready to discuss the next entry in the Star Wars prequels here today. So of course, a spoiler warning for this discussion. If you haven't seen this film, I simply recommend seeing it and then come back to this video and we can go from there. We can discuss this film in the comments. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on this film. Yes, for me, we'll get straight into it. A very interesting film. It's a controversial one. In fact, more often than not, this is the least it's the most poorly received of the prequels. And at one point, it was overall generally the least popular Star Wars film. And I'll say straight away, I'll get around to it. I originally did think that. I thought that this was my least favourite of the prequels, and way back. Many years ago now, it was also my least favourite Star Wars film, personally. And that has changed, definitely. And I do actually as well, I will say, I did praise The Phantom Menace, in a few places, but I didn't quite like that film overall. It was just under par, very, very close, but it was just under par. Overall, for me as a Star Wars fan and just as a cinema fan, although there is definitely merit to that film, I did praise it, but Attack of the Clones overall is a like. I do overall enjoy this film, and I think it's just got more interesting elements. And it flows better. We'll say generally the storytelling is better. The editing, the action. I guess it's kind of maybe nothing really compares to the big duel in The Phantom Menace. Nothing at all in this film. But overall, I think consistently, the action is better in this one, and it is also scored even better. I think the music is is stunning in The Phantom Menace, and it's even better here. Once again, it's a step up. I just think as well the lore that's in this film is more interesting. Having said that, it's quite a shame that we didn't really get to see in film format the main bulk of the Clone Wars. Obviously, this is the main plot follows in the beginnings of this. The kind of hints, the kind of fears of what's going on here with a potential civil war, and then obviously Obi-Wan is sent to investigate this initial assassination attempt on obviously Padme, and that leads him to then individually go off and obviously discover the clone army, which and it kind of depicts, especially towards the end of the film, the beginnings of the Clone Wars. Obviously Yoda, the quote later on in the film, kind of signaling that, and at the same time, we have obviously Anakin being the one to look after, Padme in this film, and from that, this kind of romance develops, which we'll get to. But yes, that is the main thing, main kind of thread with Anakin in this film. He's learning more about the Force. It's hinting at in this film, the kind of direction his character would take. It's not quite there yet, and it's very abrupt at times. Different things in this film where there are attempts to kind of set that up, I guess. In Revenge of the Sith, while I do massively praise that film, I think even in that one, it is, again, it's just very rushed and it's not quite believable enough for me over these films. Really, for him to kind of his transformation, I guess, to the dark side, obviously, and yes. Having said that, though, I enjoy the interactions between Hayden Christensen, obviously playing Anakin in this film, and Ewan McGregor playing once again Obi-Wan. I think the chemistry is very nice at times. It's just very, it's quite charming. I think one of the main things about this film, the script, it's just very, and just whatever the case, the end result, the way it comes across, in this film, the film that is released, to the viewers, whatever the case, it doesn't, fully work. That's for sure. At times, the dialogue once again is stilted. It's a bit, certainly quite flat at times, like The Phantom Menace. But in this one, we also have, this kind of massive romance that goes throughout the film, obviously between, as we've said, Padme and Anakin, and for me, really every single line, and kind of moments and scene around this romance, is just so cringy. It's just there are some obviously romances in cinema that are sometimes cringy, but it's more at times. A lot of the time it's more moments. It's more kind of aspects of that, of that romance in a film. But for me in this one, it's just one of those films where pretty much every scene is just cringy and doesn't work. I'm not invested in seeing this, and it's just it's very it takes me out of the experience. Just some of the lines, I do think it's laughable. So there is that element, I can laugh at the film, but wow, this is really, really bad. Unfortunately, the way it comes across, and just very, very cringy, and kind of awkward, to say the least. And just some of the lines, involving, teasing the senator and all this. Wow, it really is unbelievable. But at least in some of those scenes we do have a great score, to kind of. At least I get that from the film in those scenes. But really the interactions and the dialogue there, it's just a big no for me. But yes, Anakin, while kind of forming this relationship with Padme, he is also learning, as we go through the film, more of the Force, the ways of the Force, and we have at first Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of together, and they're kind of interacting. It's quite humorous, it's quite charming, and so at times it's a bit cringy again. But what is there, I do think I like at times, and then of course a lot of the film they are separate, and in the final act of the film, it's nice to see them kind of come back together. The trio, as we would, kind of Anakin, Obi-Wan and Padme, they are kind of back together in the final act for the different scenes there. The massive kind of set piece at the end. The arena, of course, an interesting sequence. At times, it's quite cool. It's visually, it's something. It is definitely, and it's some exciting moments. But overall, at the same time, it's very underwhelming in places, and too drawn out, and also just a bit messy once again. Even this is a step up visually, I will say that, from the Phantom Menace. Overall, really in every regard, the kind of the scenes in the rain as well, and just in general, desert sequences. Every single sequence really, in the way it's done, is better than the Phantom Menace. But still, I have issues with this film in the way it's kind of visually told. I think really Revenge of the Sith is the one where it's much better, and so it's definitely really quite good visually, that one. This one, I won't dismiss this film. It's got a lot going for it visually. I can see what they were trying to do, and there are moments that are very good. They're very impressive. But overall, once again, it does feel a bit disconnected. Just it's not popping enough. For me, and it's not great visually, personally for me. So there are some moments again where it's just the meshing of characters, actors and objects, with the backgrounds, the environments. It's just very noticeable, in the way the CGI is done. Obviously, just a clash of contrast as well there, and it's once again, it doesn't allow me to get fully immersed, and also sometimes it takes me out of the film. So we have that as well. But generally, this film is better directed than the Phantom Menace. It has a flow to it. The plot, I'm interested in, the assassination attempt, which sparks, the mystery, to uncover, obviously eventually the clone army, and the Clone Wars in general. It's an interesting, aspect, and kind of obviously leading to the Empire, this entire trilogy. So it is interesting in that sense. It was originally hinted at, obviously, in A New Hope. So it's been going for, in terms of our minds, cinematic for some time, and obviously, I saw Attack of the Clones shortly after it came out, but I'd already by that point seen the original trilogy so many times over and over. I'd seen the Phantom Menace once or twice. Wasn't big on that film, and this one came along, and I think at the time it's just these dialogue scenes where especially they're all kind of discussing things. As a kid, I did not enjoy that at all, and therefore any initial kind of excitement and intrigue I had, as the film opens up, even as a kid, potentially, it just lost me. And even now I'm 27, so older than I was, for example, when I first watched this film. I think even now, though, it's really not interesting to me, for the most part, in the way it's discussed. Even characters like Mace Windu, and Yoda, obviously. It's just the dialogue is just not very investing, and it's quite convoluted as well, overly complicated for its own good, and just it kind of when I was watching it again, it's just scenes that I just want to end really, and only really trying to get information out of those scenes and not actually enjoying the dialogue in itself. So that's definitely a thing that runs throughout this film. The lore and the wanting to know more around different sequences in terms of dialogue is there, but it's in the execution of the actual main exposition of the film, it's just very unengaging at times, and at its best, it's just fine. It's nothing that really stands out. And I'm loving, for example. So yes, we have that. But yes, overall, I do enjoy the kind of the way we explore different planets in this film. As I said, visually, it's much better, and I just think the editing is just it has a nice flow at times, even when we're kind of going in between different dialogue-heavy scenes that are not compelling to me. I think in between those scenes it flows nicely. I guess. And yes, performances once again. Some of them are good. I do love seeing Christopher Lee, obviously as Count Dooku in this film. Legendary actor he was, and I enjoy Christopher Lee in this film. I think he could have been given more compelling scenes, but again, that general sense of this film is, in general, the dialogue and what is given to the actors throughout. None of it is great, so there's only so much he could have done with this, and just a shame that we didn't get more from this character. There's kind of really compelling stuff, but I enjoy at times the interactions between Christopher Lee and for example, Ewan McGregor as well. That's quite nice, and just some advancements in different things that are set up in the Phantom Menace. Again, it's nothing too special. It's not that compelling, but it's more compelling than the Phantom Menace. So things that are set up there, obviously, the Emperor Palpatine, in this film, it's kind of it's improved that over the Phantom Menace, and it's quite intriguing. It's really only in Revenge of the Sith fully kind of behind that. But again, good performances at times, and it's just really the script and the way it's kind of comes across that it lets the film down, throughout, and the action. As I've said, overall, it's not for me, nothing tops the Phantom Menace action sequence, obviously the duel at the end of the film there, and overall, I think it's just a bit better overall, and because it doesn't really have the high point though of the Phantom Menace, is a shame, but generally it's just a bit more kind of visually interesting, and there is of course a duel towards the end of the film, and once again that's just I think in this film, Revenge of the Sith actually as well, what could you say, that the lightsaber duels, I just think they're not that exciting to me. I don't really know what happened there, but for example in the Phantom Menace, that was a stunning duel where it really felt very physical, dynamic. In this film it just feels like part of the background, really all the saber fights, for the most part, kind of get lost, in the background. It's very, very clean. Nothing really too, kind of visceral, or, thrilling. Whereas in the Phantom Menace, that sequence, it's, I felt really every blow. It was very intense, and just the stakes were high, but also, just the way that we have impact. I just think. In this film, there's nothing, as I say, that matches that, kind of duel in the Phantom Menace, really, and it's a shame they didn't carry that through, because if they had, in this film, and even for me personally in Revenge of the Sith, that's a big step up from this film, but it's not a step up for me from that duel in the Phantom Menace. If they carried that through throughout the entire trilogy, that kind of feeling, a combination of obviously CGI, no denying that, but the kind of physical, feeling and the visceral, the impact, and the tension there. I think it would have been, great to see, and particularly significant duels in Revenge of the Sith. It would have elevated those even further, and that would have been, really something to see. But regardless, I do praise at times the action in this film. I understand there's a lot going on. Sometimes it's a bit too much for me again, but it is definitely a step up from the Phantom Menace. So yes, overall this film, the characters, the interaction at times, I don't like the romance in this film, so that's kind of out of the window. I enjoy the interaction between Anakin and Obi-Wan, of course. Where it's where it is there. Obviously, they are separate for a lot of the film, but when it's there, it's mildly entertaining and charming. Him training up, of course. Anakin, still looking up to in this film. Obi-Wan. I do enjoy the kind of the Yoda, for example, Mace Windu, etc. discussions, kind of remarks on Anakin, and kind of them still being very dubious, of him, and what potentially what he will bring, to the Force, the balance of the Force, and him being, of course, a kind of significant individual, and being kind of a chosen one. I kind of enjoy the way in which they are doubting this, but again, it's just a bit too surface level, and I think it would have been interesting to have more of this, more kind of depth to this. Again, it's a bit one-sided with, for example, Yoda, Mace Windu in this film, just in the characterization, I think, and it's just lacking in that sense, the depth and the complexity and the balance, I think, to these characters and how they're kind of discussing things. But I do praise, at times it's at least a bit interesting where the actual, kind of the plot, and discussions on what's going on elsewhere, is very boring once again. I think in this film perhaps, because I think there's more of it, the actual discussions and stuff, it's probably at times more or less interesting than The Phantom Menace, just because, that film, it had more variety at times in between those scenes. This one, at times we have, quite long pauses where we do kind of have to hear this, and it's just at times it is a bit of a slog for me. But regardless, overall this film, I do like this one, and I think the use of music is very, very good. I think the editing is it's a step up from the Phantom Menace. Really, everything in this film, aside from elements as I've discussed, the action, is a step up over the Phantom Menace, and it's just very interesting to compare this film, and once again though it is underwhelming, is lacking in quite a few areas. As I've said, the dialogue at times, and particularly the romance in the narrative is just complete, misfire really for me, and it's just so cringy. It's kind of funny at times, but I can't say I enjoy that at all, and it's a big element of the film, obviously is that, and this being the prequel to obviously, as we know, Darth Vader, and how he came to be, and obviously he's such a significant character that everything really in this trilogy needed to be great, and for some things like the romance and this whole kind of thing to be a complete write-off. It's a shame, but that's the case, and no point dwelling on that. It's not for me personally at all. It really doesn't work, and I think at times it's a convoluted film. The action at times is not that engaging. I think as well, towards the end of the film, particular scenes with Yoda, action scenes that aren't in the arena itself, again just fall short, and it's a bit unbelievable as well. I personally feel some of the fight sequences, and particularly with Yoda, for example, it just doesn't feel real at all. It really doesn't, and I understand the attempts of kind of making this again a dance, kind of a ballet, kind of, for example. I understand the origins of this, and I understand the motive, but whatever the case, the end result, on screen, it just comes across as very, it just kind of a bit laughable at times, and it doesn't really, thrill me, for example, personally. But all that aside, overall, I think this is an okay film. It's an average film. I do enjoy it. I think it's quite a bit better than The Phantom Menace, and I think it had so much more potential, though. This one, again, it just falls short, and one of the most disappointing things is you know, the fact that the Clone Wars is just merely hinted at in this film, and you know, in, as we say, the film format, we never got, you know, the Clone Wars, the bulk of this, and you know, the kind of interesting things that are hinted at are not fully explored in this film, obviously, and you know, it's, the whole kind of scenes with the clone army. Again, it could have been. I just wasn't that engaged, considering with those scenes. But again, you know, everything that I'm flooring here really, it's followed up by scenes that are, you know, quite charming. You know, there's nothing too bad in this film. I think again, step up visually, and you know, I think the acting is, you know, generally, you know, it's fine. It's just really the script and the way that the characters come across. It doesn't really feel organic at times, and you know, other times very, very cringy and off-putting, and you know, once again, just the dialogue in general falling short. But yes, my final rating for Attack of the Clones is a 62%. So a positive score for me. It's a like. I will say that. So you know, until you know, a couple of years ago, really, you know, almost when I, you know, first rewatched, you know, this prequel trilogy after many, many years, I did not like this film. So there we go. That's positive. You know, until recently I didn't like it, and finally, you know, after all those years, you know, I do like this film. You know, I do praise this one, and you know, at least I enjoy it as well more than the Phantom Menace. So that's, you know, I do praise this film. I think overall it's entertaining. It's interesting at times, and you know, I think it's, you know, it's just a charming film at times to watch. So overall, not a dislike this time around. A positive score from me, and just nothing, you know, nothing too high, nothing too. You know, I don't love this film. It is underwhelming overall, if I'm being honest. It's a one that, you know, I wish I was, you know, more invested in, because it has a, you know, a lot of potential. And still, it's, you know, it's an okay film, but it could have been more than that for me personally. That's just my take, you know, on this film. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on this film, and what do you think of the prequels? What do you think of Attack of the Clones? What is your journey with this film? You know, did you, you know, kind of change your opinion on these films? You know, just, yeah, just you know, what are your thoughts on different aspects of this film? You know, and just yeah, let's discuss Star Wars as always in the comments, and I love you know, Star Wars, of course. The prequels, you know, just a very a mixed bag for me overall. But next up we have Revenge of the Sith. So I'll say now in advance, you know, I might as well. That is considerably better than these films for me personally, and you know, I do have many positive things to say about Revenge of the Sith. So I look forward to doing that. Again, it'll be quite soon after this review is up, when I discuss that film. So yes, I look forward to after that as well. You know, delving into the rest of the Star Wars films on the channel, and yes, that's really it. You know, I think this is a film that is overall competent. It's enjoyable, and you know, in general, it's a step up for the most part over the Phantom Menace, and it's positive for me, to, you know, to finally come around to this film, and to, you know, personally just get, you know, more from this as a viewer and as a Star Wars fan. That's the only thing that matters really, and you know, the fact that I've been able to get, you know, more positivity from this. You know, I enjoy it more than I used to, and you know, for me that's great, because it is Star Wars, and I do, you know, such a special thing to me. You know, the originals obviously is where it starts for me, and you know, it's easily my favourite, you know, area of Star Wars. But you know, if I can enjoy a Star Wars film, and I can, you know, enjoy a Star Wars film more than I previously did, then that's only positive to me, and that's what matters really. And yeah, what do I get from a film? What do I get from a film and a franchise? You know, that's very it's important for me to kind of be able to watch a film, you know, not, you know, get nothing from it. And you know, I think obviously it happens that you sometimes don't get anything from a film, but you know, I did from the Phantom Menace, you know, get a few things, and you know, enjoyment, and certainly this film. So I do like this one overall. So yes, that's my thoughts, and as always, take care, and thanks for watching.